What am I thinking? Hi, my name is Sarah Freshly and welcome back to Freshly Read Books. Honestly though, what am I thinking? Like, who do I think I am this year? But to be fair, of these 6 books, I only plan on reading 5 of them, so totally fine. Oh my gosh, that's heavy. But yeah, I'm just having trouble deciding for sure which ones I want on this list, so part of this video is getting your help to decide which of these I should prioritize and which one I can maybe leave off for a later year. So, as I mentioned in my goals video, I'm going to be doing the 2022 Big Book Reading Challenge, which is being put together by the Instagram account Time for Reading, which you should definitely go check out if you haven't already, and specifically check out her post about this challenge and the prompts within it. There's also a storygraph challenge for this, so I'll link to that in the description. As for me, I'll be going through what I've chosen for the prompts in this video. So there are 4 prompts with a bonus 5th prompt, which might not seem like a ton, but you know, big books are time consuming. I almost said big again, like yeah, obviously. First things first though, you kind of have to specify what is a big book to you. So for me, I would typically say anything that's over 500 pages, but the books that I have here today are all at least 600 pages, so that's fun. But anyways, let's discuss these prompts. So there are 3 prompts that I'm more sure about, so I'm gonna start with those even though it's not like the order in which the prompts are given to us. And then I'm gonna end with 2 prompts that I'm not as sure about that I'd really love your help in deciding. So one of the prompts is to read a translated book, which was the easiest one for me to choose, and that is The Books of Jacob by Olga Tokarczuk. So this book has just been released, and actually in the US it hasn't been released yet at the time of filming this, but if you're watching this on the upload date, then it will have been released yesterday. All that to say, in the US it's released on February 1st. I could have just said that. Now I ordered this copy from Blackwell so that I could get it a bit earlier, because the general assumption is that this book is going to be on the International Booker long list. And I plan on reading that entire long list, and the time that we have between when the long list is announced and when the winner of the prize is announced is about 2.5 months, and it would be a lot for me to read this book as well as 12 other books in that time frame. So hopefully this is getting me a jump start on reading all of those books. So you've probably been able to guess based off of how I'm talking about this book, but I have already started it. I'm about 1/4 of the way in. And this book follows Jacob, or well, it follows like everybody around Jacob. Everybody Jacob meets or talks to or looks at for more than 2 seconds. Okay, maybe it's not that bad, but it's like a very large cast of characters. And they all have names and nicknames, and some of their names are the same as other people's names, but like with 1 syllable being different. And it's really hard to keep track of. Not to mention the tangents, just tangents on tangents on tangents. So yes, there are a lot of things that make this book a difficult read, but there's also a lot of things that make this book a wonderful read. I think my favorite part of the book is maybe the atmosphere that it creates, especially in like the very beginning of it. And also the writing style is just incredible. And the people, like the conversations that the people have, they dive into these very theological and philosophical conversations, and they've got really fascinating ideas that it's fun to read about. Also, I have learned so much. Like, I am putting Google to work while reading this book because it's set in the 1700s and follows mostly Jewish people in that time in like Poland, but also Turkey, and also places that don't technically exist I mean, they exist, but they're named something different. Like the maps looked different. So it's hard to even really fully wrap my brain around that because I'm not good with like the history of geography. So that adds a bit of a challenge. But I've learned so much because of that, which I didn't think I would enjoy as much as I have. Oh, and as far as page count, this one is just under 1,000 pages long. So the next prompt is a book that is considered to be a classic. And I feel like when you're thinking big book and classic, there is one book that stands out among all of the others. That's right, I'm talking Leo Tolstoy's War and Peace. Look at this thing. It's a bit big. Is it weird that I don't know what this book is about? Like, I know it's set in Russia, obviously. It's in the 1800s, I want to say. And I believe it starts in a time of peace, but specifically like in more luxurious circles. And then war breaks out and everything changes. But other than that, I don't know at all what this is about. I think there's someone named Natasha. Oh, and I know that the cast of characters is huge, like really, really big. That's something that this book is known for. So this book is on my 100 books bucket list poster, which you can kind of see the corner of right here, but that's where it lives. So it would be good to get to cross that off this year. But also Sandy from the channel Miss Reads a Lot is doing she's got a book club that is hosted over on Discord. And this is one of the books that they're doing this year. They're doing it in March. So I figured it would be good to get myself that extra encouragement and read this as a part of a group, since I knew that I wanted to read it at some point. You should definitely check out her channel, by the way, especially if you're into like reading lists, because she is tackling the 1001 books to read before you die. And she does these like regular updates. So you can watch her progress through the list, which is honestly so wonderful, because I take forever to progress through any list of books that I'm trying to read. So it's nice to watch somebody else and it's like that extra encouragement. Not counting the appendices, this book is over 1,300 pages long. That also makes it the biggest book that I have on my list, which is funny because the next prompt we're going to talk about is actually the bonus prompt, which is a book that you think is especially long. So it's funny that my longest book on the list is not that one, but I mean, War and Peace had to be in the classic slot, right? So another book that I think is exceptionally long is Infinite Jest by David Foster Wallace. So this is the one that I'm actually going to be reading for that bonus prompt. I have wanted to read this for quite a while because I feel like anybody that does read it absolutely loves it. Like anybody that puts in that time to read through this book is obsessed with it, and I want to be obsessed with it. And then last year I read Brief Interviews with Hideous Men by David Foster Wallace, and that ended up being on my top books for the year list. So I was even more excited to get to this one, and I really want to do it this year. I'm thinking summer time frame. What I know about this book is that it is, I think, technically about a family, but more broadly it talks about more like philosophical questions as well as like entertainment and how it impacts us or something along those lines. And I've also heard that the plot doesn't get started for at least like 300 pages. So that's cool. Not intimidating at all. And this book comes in at just over 1,000 pages. Okay, so we've come to the prompts that I'm a bit more unsure about. So this is where I'm going to need your help. So those two prompts are to read a book by a BIPOC author and to read a book that has been on your TBR for a while or that you've wanted to read for a while. The last three books that I have to talk about meet both of those. So basically I'm trying to figure out which of these three books I want to leave off the list for this year. That's not to say I won't read it this year, but just that I probably won't read it this year. First, I have A Fine Balance by Rohinton Mistry. This is actually the only book on this list that has been on my TBR, like my physical TBR for the longest. The other two have just been, I've wanted to read for a long time, but I didn't own. Also, I got this thrifted, so I have no idea why there are like stamps on it. So after publishing my review of Burnt Sugar last year, I got nope, not last year, that was 2020, 2 years ago. I got a comment suggesting that I read A Fine Balance. And then I was like, yep, that's what I'm gonna do, because any recommendation that comes off of somebody seeing how much I loved Burnt Sugar is a recommendation that I should check out. So this book is set in 1975 in an unnamed city where four strangers are forced to live together when like a state of emergency is put in place, which sounds really good. I also believe that this one was shortlisted for the Booker Prize when it came out, and this one's just about 600 pages, so you know, what a breeze. Then we've got Nelson Mandela's Long Walk to Freedom, which is of course his autobiography. I don't tend to read autobiographies, especially political ones, but this one I feel like is basically a modern classic at this point. It's on my 100 books bucket list poster, and everybody just says the most fantastic things about this book. So I'm excited to learn more about Nelson Mandela, and then through him and through his story to learn more about South Africa. And then this book is also over 600 pages long. Lastly, I have Hanya Yanagihara's A Little Life. I know, while everybody's reading To Paradise, I'm here being like, maybe it's time I should read A Little Life. So this book is basically like BookTube famous. It has to be one of the books that gets like the most videos made about it, and like a very specific style of video. People film their experience reading this book, ugly crying and all. Basically, I know that this book is known for being really sad. I've not actually watched any of those videos because I'm worried about getting spoiled for anything that's not in the synopsis. And from the synopsis, this seems like a literary fiction version of the musical Rent, but set over a longer period of time. and I assume there's less singing. So of these 3 books, A Fine Balance, Long Walk to Freedom, and A Little Life, I'm going to be reading 2 of them this year, so I would love your thoughts on which 2 of these 3 books I should read this year. Anyways, that's basically my list for the Big Book Challenge for 2022. What big books are you hoping to tackle this year? Let's talk about it in the comments, and I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, consider subscribing if you haven't already. I upload new videos every Wednesday, so I will see you then. Bye.